back with another interview for Steiner Softball. We have Riley Mikolajczak with us tonight. Going to talk about her career, the 2023 season, and what to expect in her upcoming senior season. First thing I ask everybody is, you grew up in Hamilton. How aware were you of the success of Steiner softball? There's definitely a tradition and a legacy involved there. How aware growing up were you of that?
I mean, I've always been super crazy about following Steiner softball. I mean, I've always been super excited to play for them. I know I've always seen the passion and the competitiveness of Steiner softball. So that's something I definitely noticed about coming into Steiner.
Do you remember what your first memory of Steiner softball is?
Before I even came to Steiner, I went to a game with a few friends, even Addison, who was on the team. I went with her and a few other teammates like Gia. I went to a Steiner softball game when I was in middle school with them, and I was just immediately hooked with all of them.
So can you talk about now what your role would be on the team last year as a junior? You were definitely more contributing factor, definitely got into some games and helped the team. So can you talk about what your role was as a junior?
I think my role as a junior was, again, just kind of being there whenever my teammates needed me, and in any kind of situation, just going in and keeping my cool with whatever I needed to do.
So can you describe the challenges that are going to come with being the only senior on this team coming up this year? There's certainly no lack of talent, and I don't really believe there's a lack of leadership there, but being the only senior does sort of set you apart. So can you talk about what you think the challenges are of being the only senior on the team?
I think the challenges are really just setting a good example for everyone, and there's definitely a lot to live up to. With last year's seniors, they did an amazing job of keeping the team in line and keeping everybody positive and motivated. So I think really just being a good role model for all the underclassmen.
So you have played a lot of positions over your time at Steiner. I know you're a pitcher. I know you played some outfield, some first base, a little bit of third base at times. Do you have a preference for what position you like or what your favorite is?
Definitely, I would say definitely first base. I love all the positions, but first base definitely has to be my go-to.
As a kind of a follow-up to where we talked about, you did play a bunch of different positions, and you did have a specific role on the team where you were getting game time, but there were specific moments and teams they were using you against. So can you talk about the challenge of how you stay prepared and how you stay ready to play when you're in this game for 3 innings, then you're out the next game, then you're playing 2 or 3 games in a row, and then coming out again, sitting for a week before you get back in the lineup. Again, there was a very specific way they were using you against in certain situations. But can you talk about how you stay ready to play without that consistency?
I think my mentality was really again, just doing it for my team. I had a job to do, and whenever I was needed, I knew I had to do that. And really just staying up on myself personally in practices and staying motivated with myself.
I would like to ask you about a specific game. In the top of the second inning, you got inserted into the Central Jersey Group 3 final. You did not start the game. When did you find out you were going into the game?
I found out literally right before I was put in. I just got a tap on the shoulder and just was okay, hey, you're going in. And I just had to kind of prepare myself for that.
Okay. 2, then can you kind of walk us through then, so you got the tap, they tell you you're going in. What are your thoughts? What are your emotions? What's going through your mind as you run onto the field at the top of the second inning?
Obviously, it's a stressful situation, and the adrenaline was definitely pumping, but I just kind of had to quiet my mind down and just, again, do the job that had to be done.
The last play of the game was really, really tight. Ball gets hit hard, bounces off Izzy's leg, kind of fumbles around, then we get it, she fires it in, call the girl out. Some people say safe. Riley says
out. I think.
Two other moments from that game that I would like to ask you, since you're kind of at first. The first one is Mia's diving play to the left. Bases are loaded, it's 1 out. We're up 2-0. Katie Ziliani has really kind of controlled us in the previous 2 games, so getting up
Right.
early was definitely a big advantage for us, as it would be for anyone.
Right.
That play then allowed us to get out of that inning with no runs scored. Can you kind of talk about how you see that from your angle? Like, it comes off, it's going into the hole. Like, how do you see that off the bat? Do you see that Mia has a shot at it, or are you thinking, okay, I got to get in position for cutoffs? Like, you know.
I mean, honestly, like, when I go out on the field, I have full faith in everyone on that field, and I think Mia is a phenomenal shortstop. She definitely gets the job done whenever she needs to.
Okay, the second one is actually a play you were involved in. It's the bottom of the 7th. We're up, and the leadoff hitter hits a ball up the middle that I think everybody thought was going to be a base hit off the bat. And then Bianca kind of comes, you can kind of, from our point of view in the outfield, you can see her kind of tracking.
Right.
And then from her knees, she comes up and throws her out at first base. So just, again, from your vantage point, from your perspective, when you see it off the bat, do you see Bianca tracking it? Can you just walk us through what you see?
I mean, honestly, like, from my perspective, it was probably one of the craziest plays I've seen. But again, I had complete faith in Bianca. I mean, obviously it's a harder hit ball, and it was definitely a harder play, but she's quick and she'll get there. Our middle infielders definitely are always on it. I think that play was really motivational for us and really pushed us to get through the rest of the states as well.
So in about the state final, I just would like you to talk about, can you talk about like what it felt like in the lead up to that game? Like, what was the energy like? What was the feel like? And then if you could kind of walk us through the emotion of the beginning to the middle to the end.
I mean, we were there last year. Didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, so I think the drive to win this year was much higher than ever. I mean, anyone going to the state final would obviously want to win it, but I think the energy going into it was incredible. I mean, we were all so hyped up for weeks, or not even weeks in advance, but like days in advance, like leading up to it. We did everything we could to prepare for it, to make sure we had the outcome we wanted. During the game, we obviously stayed pretty hyped up. Izzy obviously got hurt during that game, and that kind of even pushed us even more to just really do it for her and do it for the rest of the team and do whatever we had to win it for her and for everyone else. And then in the end, obviously coming out of it, it was just a really exciting moment, and I think something that everybody will remember.
You did kind of touch on it, having been there the year before. So I said, I'm kind of asking the girls that have been there for both, like, can you compare the feeling and the vibe and energy before the 22 state final to the vibe and energy before the 23 state final?
I think the energy was pretty similar going into it. I mean, personally, it was my first state final in the 2022 season, so I was a little more nervous going into it. But the energy was definitely there from the beginning for both of them. I mean, it's just the outcome that wasn't the way we wanted it for the first one.
So I just want to wrap up. I'm going to talk about a couple of individual moments. So if you had, and it's hard because everybody wants to talk about the state final, right? Which we know would be everybody's best memory. So before we get to that, I will ask about that game in a second, right? But can you talk about an individual moment of yours from last season? Like one play, if we talk about specifically your 2023 season and plays, like what one play jumps out or sticks out in your mind?
Probably, I would say like the play with Bianca, I think. It was definitely, I know I didn't do like much with it, but I think it really just played a big part in that game. I mean, obviously it was closer towards the end of the game. But I think just having that like chemistry to know that I'm there for her and she's there for me is always good.
So then I would ask for an individual moment from somebody else. Like, just again, when we think 2023 season and we think about the biggest moments, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's a lot of, two of them we just spoke about, right? But there's a lot of others from a lot of other players. So if we talk about any other play of the 2023 season, something that wasn't yours, what jumps out at you?
Immediately, I think Sierra's bomb off of Sophia Bordi. Obviously, Sophia Bordi is one of like the best players I've ever seen personally. I was a little nervous going up against her, but I think just watching Sierra hit that ball was phenomenal. It, like, every time she hits a ball, I just watch it fly.
So then lastly, I'd like you to ask about a game. I mean, like, again, and obviously the state final is the game, and I'm going to ask you something about that in a second. But if there's one game that stands out that's not the state final, which game would that be for you?
I think the Shawnee game, because we were obviously down in the beginning, and then miraculously lightning struck, and I guess we kind of flipped the switch, and I think that was a really cool comeback from us.
And so we usually end by playing some word association. So I'm going to say a lot of the same names you've heard if you've watched the other interviews, right? But you'll hear some things, and I'm just asking you the first thing that comes to your mind. If you spit it out, if you feel the need to explain it, feel free, but let's try to keep it to shorter, right? Ready?
So ready.
Softball.
Love, I think.
Coach Melker.
Passionate.
Notre Dame.
Fierce. So fierce.
Colts Neck.
Intense.
Robbinsville.
I think suspenseful. Every game.
2023 seniors.
Fantastic. So many words to describe them. Anything really, just fantastic.
Steiner.
Pride.